If you've watched the first few parts of this, then you'll know that we're working on a Rick and Morty drawing, and we're ready to move into the stage where we finish up kind of detailing the final line work on Morty a bit. Let's go ahead and just jump right into it. I don't want to waste too much time, so a quick peek at our layer stack lets us know a couple things here. I've got some rough sketches here that I can actually start eliminating, so I don't need this rough here anymore that's underneath Rick. I'm going to get rid of it. And I have him separated into a couple different layers, but I'm going to keep the head. Actually, we're going to just kind of collapse them all together now and start working into some empty layers ready to get this Morty sketch taken care of. So, blank layer. I've got my sketch pencil on. We discussed this in the first video, so I'll put up a little card so you can go back and take a look at it if you're curious about the brushes here. And without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Now, Morty is a relatively easy figure to sketch out. We are not going to be taking a whole lot of time like this like we did on Rick. Everything is nice and simple for the most part, starting with a big fat circle for his head. So let's get into it. Remember, Procreate is going to help me draw this circle. I'm just going to lay something out, keep the tip of the pencil down, and while I still have the tip of the pencil down, it's going to autocorrect to an ellipse. Without removing the pencil, I'm going to take the finger of my other hand, and I'm just going to lay it on the screen, and now it creates a perfect circle. Now I let everything off the screen, and I like this circle, but it is not quite where I want it to be. So since the circle is the only thing that's on this layer, I'm going to use my arrow tool to select it and just kind of hone in on that shape just a little bit. Get it roughly where I want. Now Morty's head isn't an absolute perfect circle 100% of the time, but for what we're doing here and this composition we're going for, I think this works. So we're going to keep it as is. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of sketch in his ear here really quick, so that helps inform where I'm going to place things like eyes, nose, and mouth. And erase the extraneous line that I don't need, and now I got something to work with. Now my rough sketch really kind of tells me where the rest of this stuff's going to go, so let's just go ahead and get in the nose. All right, we'll get in his little frowny face mouth here a little bit. Right, there we go. And circles for the eyes. So let's go ahead and get into circle number 1. Again, we're going to use our Procreate circle feature to help us out with this. And this one I'm actually going to allow to be an oval here a little bit, but I want to adjust the shape. Remember, this is like kind of a 3/4 view, so it's not going to be a perfect circle in the eye. It's going to be slightly elongated, or squashed, if you will. So we'll kind of do it a little something like that. Now, I've got some lines here that don't belong, just because we did some overlapping, so let me go ahead and make some corrections here. There we go. And I'm relatively happy with that. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and open up another layer here just to put in a couple of these other lines to make it easier to erase. So I'm going to put in his anger lines here, or his, look of determination, so to speak. Again, his pupils, like so. I'm not quite happy with those lines. We'll just keep working on them until I get them right. There we go. There we go. And now we can go back to the previous layer and erase some of the stuff we didn't need. Like we don't need this, for instance, or this. And I can actually get rid of much of this too. There we go. So that's how we took some circles and we really did just a little bit of work with it to help make the shapes that we really needed instead. Good lesson to be learned here, no matter what. Even when I'm working on these like kind of final phases of my refined drawing, right before going into inks, I'm still working in just some basic shapes. Whenever you're in doubt as to what it is your approach to a drawing should be, just try to get it back down to those basic shapes as much as possible. And you'll find that if you can break it down into simple squares, triangles, rectangles, circles, that's a beginning. It's a place to start. But once you have that in, then it's just one more step to kind of getting into things more three-dimensional. Squares become boxes, circles become spheres, and so on and so forth. So let me go ahead and put in his body again. I keep head and body separate for the most part until I'm happy with the final result. So create another layer for it and just make sure I get these nice, confident, broad strokes in. Now, my last video, when we were working on the refined Rick sketch, I talked a lot about these broad strokes, what they're meant to accomplish, why I do it like this. And then just to kind of reiterate, all I'm really trying to do is get nice fluid lines because it helps create lifelike, might be the better word, work. Not quite happy with something there. I'm going to actually clear that all out and start over. I'm going to angle this arm down just a little bit more, I think. So I'm going to make room for his other arm to kind of peek through here a little bit better. So let me just do it like this. And again, we may refine this sketch a little bit more in another layer. That's why we separated the head, so we don't have to worry about making any mistakes or redrawing the head now that we know that we're pretty happy with it. And now that I got that in, I can get his other arm in here like this. And then we can start getting the rest of this in here. And notice quick strokes where I'm moving more than anything else. I'm moving my arm more than I'm moving like hand and wrist. Notice again, gun's a little bit simpler here, so we're not going to have to spend a lot of time trying to get the perspective right on it. But I am going to probably take another pass at the body just because I am something of a perfectionist at this stage, and I want to make sure that I have something really clean moving into the next inking phase. There we go. I'm relatively happy with that. All right, let's go ahead and again, we'll take another pass at this and just refine everything. Before I do, let me go back to the head layer, and I think we can just get rid of this little piece of overlap that's kind of driving me a little bit buggy here. And then we can lower the opacity on the torso layer, draw over it, and get our final line work honed in. All right. There we go. And notice at this stage it goes really, really fast. I don't have to spend any more time solving problems or making decisions about where lines should or should not go. All that stuff has been taken care of already in those previous layers that I've either collapsed or deleted as I went along. What I want to really make sure I'm doing here is have a very clean and clear understanding of where my final lines will go. You know, what my elbow looks like, what my hands look like. You know, if I'm overlapping one arm over another, where that overlapping occurs. There's no time or reason that you should be making decisions about final placement of lines when you're getting into the inking and coloring stages. That's not to say that you won't have to make the occasional correction or solve a new problem that you run into, but those should be exceptions rather than the rules. All right, so a little something like that. And let's see here, I'm going to have some fingers overlapping, so let me just go ahead and get these in first. So finger number 1, finger number 2, 3, and these are 4-finger cartoons, so we'll get that last one there. And then we have the 4-finger of the other hand holding the gun. And we're going to put a thumb in here. Now, if I'm being honest, if we were to look at the cartoon, we would see that I've drawn these hands a lot more complex than they really attempt to in the original cartoon. But again, I'm doing something of a mix of the cartoons style and kind of adding my own twist to it. The reason I'm kind of insisting on adding my own elements to this is just mostly because it allows the whole process to go faster. I can, to a certain degree, create some pretty decent forgeries or at least mimicries of other people's artwork. As a matter of fact, I'll be taking a look at some other artists in the near future and taking a look at what breaks down those styles and what makes them unique, and even in some cases how to reproduce them into some future videos. So I'll be discussing more about that project a little bit later on. But the point of the matter here is that I probably could get this pretty close to what the cartoon looked like, but it's time consuming to do it. And mostly because I don't have that muscle memory. I'm not one of the animators on the show that's been forced to draw Rick and Morty and all the characters exactly to the canon look and appeal every single time. Because I'm not an animator on the show, obviously, but if you can do that much repetition, you get faster at it. So just putting in these last little details here, and I think we'll be just about done. And yeah, relatively happy with that. Let's go ahead and do that thing that I did before where I just increase the thickness of the line. We'll draw something in here to kind of represent where they're coming out of the portal a little bit. There you go. And then we can also go back in and erase the extra line that we don't need. I think I'm relatively happy with that. All right, so let's go ahead and get rid of the roughs that we don't need. And I think the one last thing we should do here is maybe draw in just a rough idea of what we want our portal to look like. So I'm going to want to make the line nice and thick on this just to kind of keep it separate from the rest. And I got a fresh layer here. This is going to be circular, but it's not going to be a perfect circular line. It's going to be relatively loose and wavy. So I'm just going to go ahead and start laying it in and just, kind of forcing some of the irregularity in there as I go along, just like so. I'm relatively happy with it, but what I need to do is just erase the parts that I don't need. So I'm just going to lower the opacity just so I can see through it a little bit and really get some accuracy on the eraser to go into the overlapped parts like right here in Rick's head and get that stuff out of there. All right. That looks pretty good there. Do the same thing on the gun. There we go. And we have some stuff over here to take care of too. Just like that. All right. I think we got roughly something to work with here. So let's just do a little bit more design elements. I'm going to hide the layer that was the original sketch on this. I've got Rick and Morty basically in their own layers, and of course the portal itself in its own layer. So let's just take one final look at our composition and see if we're happy with it. And I got to tell you, there is just one thing I would like to tweak a little bit. I think Morty, I'm going to move over to the left just a scotch. And I'd like to move the portal over to the right just a bit as well. Just to get that a little bit more of that dynamic overlapping I'm looking for. Probably something I should have done before I made the adjustments and the erasures on the portal, but that's okay. It's easily corrected when we get into our inking phase. So that's it. I think I'm pretty happy with this, and I think what we can now do is just lock this whole thing down into one layer, just like that. And the real reason I'm happy with doing this is because I'm ready to move on to final phase, which is basically the inks, and then from the inks we'll start doing our coloring. So I'm going to end the video right here. I hope you got something out of it. It was a relatively short one since we were just getting Morty done, but I think getting into the inking phase is going to require a little bit longer of a discussion, so I don't want to do it in this video. We'll take care of it in the next phase. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, the like button, don't forget to share, and leave any comments if you have any questions or you need some detail for some of the future videos that are coming up. That's all I've got for right now. Hope to see you again soon. Thanks again for attending, and take care.